Hey guys, welcome to the video, welcome to my channel, welcome to my basement. In this video I'm going to be giving you a little tutorial in BendTech Pro as to how I design some of the things that you'll see me making in some of my videos. Now it's very important for you guys to understand that I am not an expert at software like this at all. As a matter of fact, I really only know how to do the specific things that I'm going to show you. Aside from that, there's many aspects of this software that I don't even know how to use, nor do I care, because I don't think I'm smart enough to learn all of this software. I only want to use in this software what I need to and nothing else. Because my hobby is not the software, my hobby is using the software to fabricate whatever it is that I'm trying to fabricate.
Before you get started, if you do not have BendTech, this is their website. It's www.bendtech.com. This is where you can go to get the software. Go to their products. The software that I have is this one right here, the BendTech Pro. It's roughly $300. If you go from the main screen up to support, here in either the wiki or the videos, they have an incredible amount of information. So the first thing that you're going to want to do at the main screen before we even try to build anything is go to Tools, go to Options. These are defaults that you can set. The only thing I was really concerned with here is for the units of measure, I put mine on inches. This is where you can choose whether it'll start as millimeters or inches. And then for the tolerance, I didn't do anything with the rotation angle or the bend angle, but for the lengths, I put mine to fractions to a 16th, because when I go out in the garage and I'm taking dimensions for all of this stuff, I'm taking it with my tape measure basically down to a 16th of an inch. Then go back up to Tools and go to the Tube Pipe Library. And this is where you're going to tell BendTech what material you have to work with. So you can see I've got a couple of different sizes in here that I can work with. If you go to Add New, you can select whether it's going to be round, square, or rectangular. Whatever you select, put in the dimensions that it asks for. Name it whatever you want. Give it whatever color you want. And the weight per inch, if you have that information, you can put it in there. It's really cool when you build a project it'll tell you how much it weighs, and that's pretty cool. So put in whatever you have and save that as well. And then go up to Tools again and go to the Die Library. This is where you need to tell it what dies you're going to be working with. You can see I've only got 2 in here, and I only have 2 dies for my bender. I've got a 3.5 inch for 1 inch, and I've got a 5.5 inch for 1.5 inches. That's all I have. So what I did is I just put in the name of whatever die you want, and what I did is I went to the OEM list. You click up here, pick what you have. Mine's a JD Squared. I believe it's a Model 2. And then over on the side here, it will give you all of the options, and just find your die and pick it. There's a different way to do this. You'll have to look up in their tutorials to see how to do that. I didn't do it because it seemed really complicated, but there's a way where you can go in and it will tell you a piece to bend, and it'll say how far to bend it, and then it'll ask you all sorts of dimensions, and then you'll enter that information in here, like for the achieved centerline radius, the calibrated centerline radius, bend location, offset. You give it all that specific information, and then when you make bends, the bends will be very accurate. So add whatever dies you have and then save that. So for us working on this test, what we're going to do is we're going to draw up a little stool, just a stool that I could use in my shop. I've got a real sloppy sketch of it right here where I just went out and took some dimensions of the stool that I'm currently using, made some changes that I wanted, and then just kind of scribbled it out with some chicken scratch. So we're going to start by just forgetting about all of this other stuff and just click on Assembly. Now, what you're looking at here is basically the world that BendTech lives in. You can use your center scroller to zoom in and out, and wherever you put your mouse is where it focuses the zooming on. So if you put the mouse right over the middle, zoom in and out, it zooms right there. If you move it to the right or left, okay. If you press your center scroller, that moves your item around. Hold down the center scroller, it moves it around. If you press and hold down the right mouse button, then you can rotate it on its axis. Now, if you get confused by moving it around on its axis, you can always go up here to the home button. And when you click the home button, it brings you back to the default view. Now, looking at this little star pattern, everything that's going to happen in BenTech here is going to be based off of these points. It's starting you with a point right here in the middle. Everything that we do from this point on, we're going to be giving it points, either back, front, left, right, ceiling, or floor. So I'm going to go over here to pick points, and I'm going to leave it on single. And if you see here, now we're looking at the star. It's the same star that we're looking at there. It even rotates with us. It tracks us no matter what we're doing. And it's basically the same star, but here we have options to put in dimensions. Now I know that at the bottom of my stool, I want the legs 14 inches apart. And since this is centered, that means I need to put a point 7 inches apart on 4 points. So what I'm going to do is highlight front. I'm going to put in 7. And I'm going to go to right. And I'm going to put in 7. Now, if you notice, it's using this point right in the middle as our reference, and it's gone 7 inches over and 7 inches up. So I'm going to hit apply. Zoom out a little bit, and you can see we've got a point there. Now, I need to make another point 7 inches in the other direction, and if you notice, if you just click on the left here, it immediately pulls that 7 from the right side over to the left. So that's very helpful. Now I'm just going to hit apply. Then I'm going to hit back to move the 7 to the back. Hit apply. I'm going to hit right to move the 7 back over to the right, and I'm going to hit apply. Now if I zoom out a little bit, you can see that I've got 4 points evenly spaced apart. They're actually 14 inches apart. Now I'm going to clear the values so that I'm starting from scratch. Now what we're going to do is I need to set the height of this stool. So here where it says set reference, this is where you can tell this star pattern where to work from. You don't always have to work from the center here. You can pick this point, and then any dimensions that you put in your star here would be pulled off of this point or this point. Whatever point you want to use as your reference, you can use it. And that makes it extremely helpful once you're building a larger project. So I know that my stool wants to be 30 inches tall, so for the ceiling, I'm going to put 30, then I'm going to hit apply. Now if you notice, now I've got a point that's 30 inches high. And I know that I want the top of my stool to be roughly 8 inches apart. Whereas this was 14, I want the top to be 8. So I'm going to leave the 30 in there. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get rid of the 30. I'm going to make that 0. But I'm going to set the reference as that top piece. So now I can draw on the top, but I don't have to tell it to be 30 inches up because this is now my reference. So I'm going to go 4 inches to the right, and I'm going to go 4 inches to the front. I'm going to hit apply. I'm going to go 4 to the left, apply, 4 to the back, apply, 4 to the right, apply. Now if you paid attention to that, as I hit the button, it just moves that 4 from one side to the other, and that gives me that square that I need. All right, so now I'm going to go back to main. Now that I have the points set up, we need to start turning this into an actual part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to the material list, and I'm going to click on 1 inch DOM because I'm going to make this stool out of 1 inch. And then my default die is my 1.5 inch die. So I'm going to click this down and pull up my 1 inch by 3.5 inch die. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the legs here. I'm going to come up. I'm going to make this a radius up at the top. And I'm going to have all 4 of these legs come in and just meet at the center. So that's going to require 1 bend. So I'm going to click on bend. At this point, it's going to ask you how many bends, and we're only making 1. So I'm just going to hit OK. And I'm going to go from this point up to my bend and then in to the center. And it's going to ask me to name the part. You could put something in there as a name, but since this is just a test, I'm just going to leave it as the default part 1. But OK. Then you can see it has automatically radiused up at the point here. And that radius is based off of the die that I told it that I'm using, which is a 3.5 inch. So this should be about a 3.5 inch radius. Now I'm going to do this for all 4 of these legs. Okay, now I've got all 4 of the legs drawn in there. Now what we're looking at now is the wireframe drawing. If we go up here to display, it will switch us over to our actual tube. So you can switch over to that display to get a better idea of what you're actually making. Now, I know that on my stool here, I want to have some supports down here at 2 different elevations so that I've got a couple of different levels that I can rest my foot on. And I know that I want one on each side at 8 inches and then one on the other 2 sides at 10 inches. So I need to put some points at 8 inches up and some points at 10 inches up. So I'm going to go back to the wireframe and I'm going to go back to pick points. And instead of using single, I'm going to go lines, because now that I have some lines here, I can use these to base the points off of. So I'm going to click this Set Reference, and I'm going to select this leg to set the reference. Now I've got a couple options here to swap ends or to split in half. If I click Split in Half, it's going to put a point right in the middle of this line, which would be 13.569 inches. What I want to do is I want to have my point 8 inches up. So instead of this, I'm going to tell it 8 inches. Now if you see, this is 8 inches up from the bottom. Sometimes depending on how you click this, it might be opposite. So if you hit swap ends, now it's starting from this point rather than this point, and now I'm 8 inches from here. But since we want to be from the bottom, we hit switch ends. We hit apply, and boom. Now we've got a point 8 inches up on this line. So I need to do that for all 4 of the legs. So I go to Set Reference, pick the next leg. All of this stuff carries over because I haven't changed it. So all I need to do is hit apply. Now you can see it, for one reason or another, selected this line backwards. So all I need to do is hit swap ends, and it puts it back at the bottom. Hit apply, reference, and apply. Now I need to do that all over again, but this time instead of 8 inches, I'm going to be 10 inches so that it's a little bit higher. Hit apply, and I need to go do that to all 4 legs. Oh, I did that one wrong. See, I went too fast, got ahead of myself, and now I put that point up 10 inches from this point. So what we can do is, we're already in the pick points. We can go to edit points, click on delete. Boom, that's gone. Go back to lines, set reference, click on that, and now swap ends and apply. Swap ends on that one and hit apply. Now we'll go back to the main screen. Go to the wireframe, and boom, now you can see I've got 2 points on each line. One is 8 inches up and one is 10. So now I'm going to go to straight, and this is just a matter of connect the dots. I'm going to go from this dot to this dot to this dot to this dot, this guy to this guy, this guy to this guy. Now I'm going to go to display, and boom, that's basically my stool. You know, I'll have to put a wood base up on the top, and I'll have to put some feet on the bottom, but essentially that is my stool. We're by no means done. We still need to go in and we need to cope all of these. So in order to do that, we're going to go to cutting. I'm going to zoom in because I'm going to do these legs first. And what we're going to do for miter cuts is you just click on this new cut, and then it's asking us to select the feature you wish to cut. So I want to cut this leg. And then it asks you to tell it what it's going to cut it to. So I'm going to select the leg, then I'm going to hit complete. If you zoom in there, you can now see that there's a little cut mark, and that's what it's going to use as our miter. So to do another one, you select new cut, select the piece you want to cut, select the piece that it's going to be cut onto. You zoom in, you see right now, there's no miter, it's just magically got those 2 tubes smashed into each other. But as soon as you hit complete, then it puts a cut line for the contour of your pipe. So we need to do that on each end of all of the pieces, and it's the same. You go to new cut, select your tube, select what it's getting cut onto, complete. New cut, select the tube, select what it's up against, complete. Now I need to do the same thing up at the top. What I'm going to do at the top here is I'm going to leave 2 of these just like they are, so they'll be just butt welded together. But then the other 2 coming in, I'm going to cope those. So I'm going to go to New Cut. Now that, as far as for the copes, that should be it. So I'm going to go back to the main page, and I'm going to go back to home to kind of start me from scratch, and then I kind of move it around as to what I want. So what we have to do now this is essentially, this is our stool. It's really done. But now we need to check a couple of things. We want to check and make sure that our copes are correct. And the way to do that is go to Parts, click on the part that you want to inspect, and go to Part Details. Now you're looking at just that one specific part, and if you zoom in, you can see that it does have a cope on there, and it looks like a good cope. Yeah, that's good. So we'll get out of there. It's going to ask us if we wish to save it, and we don't because we didn't make any changes. So that's how we can check the miters on these. Now let's check the miter and the bend on one of the pieces, on one of the legs. So we're going to click on the part. That's part number 1, and we're going to go to Part Details. Again, you can see our bend there. And we're going to zoom in, and 2 of these were straight. Yeah, this is one of the straight ones. So let's get out of there. We want to see one that's got the cope on it. Nope, we didn't make any changes to that. So we'll click on this one. This is part number 2. We're going to go to Part Details, and we're going to zoom in on the part here. And there you can see that this also has a cope. So that's good. So that all got put in there properly. Another thing that we want to do, since this is going to have a radius on it, we would need to print out some information on this piece. So if we go up to Tasks and go to Flat Layout, you can zoom this in or out just like you can your project. On the left model, go to Start of Bend, and it'll tell you that this piece needs to be cut 34 3/4 of an inch long, and that your bend is going to start at 26 3/4 of an inch. Then you're going to go on the Bends tab, you're going to click on Angles and click on Spring Angles. And what's that telling us is that this bend is going to be 82 degrees, but what you're going to need to do, I should have showed you this earlier, but on your die page, in your tools library, you can tell your die how many degrees of bend back it has. And I know, because I've done tests on the steel that I use, that this 1-inch DOM has 7 degrees of bend back. So it's telling me to bend it to 89 degrees. And that's because it knows that this angle needs to be 82. It knows that this material has 7 degrees of bend back. So it's saying you got to bend it to 89, and then when you release it, it's going to bend back to 82. And then what I would do typically then is print this out, because I would use this when I was fabbing up those legs. So to print out your templates, go to Cutting and click the part that you want. So if you go to Straight 1, it's going to highlight in green the part that is. And then in red, it's going to show you the piece that it's contoured or it's coped against. And if you notice, Straight 1 has a start and an end. If you click on the other end, it's just going to be the other end of that piece. So if we go to the first one here, this is part 1, and it's the start. And if you click on Details, this is your template. This is what you want to print out. And I'm not going to explain to you all the idiosyncrasies of these, because I have another video that goes over that, and I'll put a link to it up on this video so you can check it out. But this is where you would print this out, and this is where you would use that template to wrap around this piece to cope that out. And now I'm going to save this. So you'll go to your file, and you would go to Save As. I already saved it as Barstool, and I am going to put this in my shared folder so that if any of you guys have BendTech and if you want to play around with this or try to make another one just like it or what have you, I'll have a link in the description of this video with my shared folder, and I'll put this in there. Now, one thing that I was not able to show you in this bar stool, because it didn't have any, is how to do a miter, and I do want to show you how to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a little L-shaped piece off to the side here. So I'm going to go to Pick Points, I'm going to go to Single, and I'm just going to go 24 inches out in front. There's my reference point. So I'm going to hit Apply, and now I'm going to make my other reference point the point I just made. And instead of going 24 inches, I'm going to go 12. I'm going to hit apply. And then I'm going to go, let's say, 8 inches to the left. Now I'm going to pick some straight, and I'm just going to connect the dots. Okay, now if I go to display, you can see that I've just made an L-shaped piece there. And if you look, this is not coped and it's not mitered. It's just these two pieces smashed into one another. And let's make a mitered joint right here. So we're going to go to cutting, and we're going to click on this outside diameter only. And I can't explain to you why you need to click that, but I know from experience that clicking that will make this miter much cleaner. And then we're going to go to auto miter. We're going to select this piece, and we're going to select the piece that it intersects with, and that's it. So we're going to go back to main, and now if you look, that's a nice, clean, mitered joint. And if you want to check it, you can go to parts, you can click on the piece, and you can go to part details. And if you move it around, you will see that it has a nice 45-degree miter on it. I'm going to delete that, so I can just go up here to delete. Delete the two lines. I also want to delete the points, so I'm going to go into pick points. I'm going to go to edit points. I'm going to click on delete. I'm going to get rid of those three lines. I'm going to go back to the main page, home, and then usually from home I move this around what I want. I'm going to click on the little floppy disk here and make sure that it's saved. And that is it.
So there you have it, guys. That was a quick tutorial as to how to use Bendtech to make some parts out of tubing. Like I said, it wasn't going to be too in-depth because, number one, I don't know the software well enough to give you an in-depth video. Number two, even when I edit that, it's probably going to be a longer video than I want it to make. But if you guys if you have Bendtech and you're trying to get used to it, I think that's a really useful tutorial, because that's essentially what I do whenever I'm making suspension arms or the chassis or what have you. Most of the concepts that I used in there is the same. It's just repetitive, some different tricks for the pick points, but once you're in there and you have these skills, it won't take you long to explore the menu a little bit more and figure out other ways that you can get a little bit more creative with doing parallels and different pick points, offsets, and things like that. So guys, if you made it through the end of the video, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's helping you work on whatever it is that you're working on, and I hope to see you on the next video. Take care.